Rosemary Lauren Evans in marriage. Dan and Rosemary would like to thank you all for traveling here to show your love and support for them as they vow to love one another eternally. Each of you holds a special place in their hearts. Before I continue on, if there is anyone that objects to this marriage, I will kindly ask you to keep it to yourself and quietly exit. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Barth. Dan and Rosemary are close friends of mine that I met during our years in Buffalo. Why am I up here doing this? Let me briefly explain. Almost a year and a half ago, I was sitting next to Rosemary in a lecture hall at UB in a course known as Foundations. As interesting as the lesson about dirt and gravel was that day, we were a little distracted and spent most of the class discussing anything but that. At some point, we started discussing marriage, and I shared that a friend of mine had just married friends of his by getting a legitimate online certification. A few Google searches and $20 later, I was the newest licensed minister in New York State. Even after that, I didn't think I was really going to be doing this, but as the date got closer, Dan and Rosemary came to me and asked sincerely if I would. I think it occurred to them that having a close friend take them through this process would be more meaningful than someone they had never met. When I take a look at my closest friends, I realize that they possess characteristics that I admire and might like to emulate. It's one of the reasons why they've become a big part of my life, because I can learn and grow from just having them around. When I think about Dan and Rosemary, what comes to mind is their faith. My two friends carry their faith into everything they do in a very unassuming manner. What I find most amazing about it is the confidence and positivity it brings them with every decision they make. And I mean everything. Have you ever gone out to eat with these two? I have. They pick up the menu, look it over intently, and each find an item that sounds delicious. They pick that dish, close the menu, and never look back. Meanwhile, I've narrowed it down to 5 choices by the time the waiter comes, and I have to make a game time decision. When the food arrives, I look across the table and see Dan and Rosemary sharing 2 bites of items that are satisfying them more than anything else on the menu could. All joking aside, this is what I love most about these two. The grass is always greenest on whichever side they are standing. That they show no fear of missed opportunities or regret over past decisions. I believe that this shared outlook is what creates their unbreakable bond and allows them to work through the challenges that come with all lasting relationships. While today marks the official beginning of your partnership that has flourished over the past 3.5 years, the everyday cycle does not change. There will be great moments and there will be bumps, just as there has been. I want to say to you that when the marriage becomes challenging, to never lose the faith you have in each other. But you already know that. I also want to say that sometimes you'll both have to make compromises and sacrifices for the other's sake. But I know you already know that because I've seen it happen before my own eyes. I, of course, have never administered a wedding before, but I can say that I do not know any 2 young adults whose love is so strong and intent to marry is so pure. I love you both, and I'm truly honored to be here for you. I want to invite Sue, the mother of the groom, to lead us in prayer, and Denise, the mother of the bride, to read a passage from the book of Philippians.
Thank you that when you created man for yourself, you knew it was not good for man to be alone. So you created woman to be his helpmate, and you blessed their union. Thank you that you weave your divine will with our free choice and orchestrate our circumstances for our good and your glory. Thank you that you have brought Dan and Rosemary together, that they have been mutually attracted to each other, and that now they commit to their sacred intimacy and loyalty of lifelong love, which is the symbol of your passion for your people. Please bless this couple with every good and perfect gift as the author and finisher of our faith, and remain in their midst as the God who not only sees us, but is with us from now until eternity. This we ask in Jesus' precious and matchless name. Amen.
A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Philippians. Rejoice in the Lord always. I shall say it again, rejoice. Your kindness should be known to all. The Lord is near. Have no anxiety at all, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, make your requests whatever is gracious, if there is any excellence, and if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Keep on doing what you have learned and received and heard and seen in me. Then the God of peace will be with you. For the Lord. Amen.
I'd like to invite Ben, the best man and brother of the groom, to deliver a devotional.
So right up front, I gotta admit that I feel inadequate to this role. Because at all the weddings I've been to before, it was either an old guy doing this, or a married guy, or a guy who had a lot of experience. None of those things. So, bonus points for being adventurous, I guess. But a lot of what you're going to hear is going to be secondhand, from very good sources, though, like the Bible, like our dad. Because I think it's from Dad that I inherited my reluctance to do this. You know, he's not big on like sitting us down and giving advice. His practice is more to pass along his wisdom a little at a time, when the moment's appropriate. And probably the most basic truth I hold about marriage came from an offhand comment he made while we were watching TV. The report was about some celebrity marriage that didn't last. And he said, "I just don't understand how people get into marriage thinking it's about them." And that offhand comment encapsulates everything else I want to say today. What you're getting into now is bigger than either of you, and you can be assured of that by looking around. I'm willing to wager not a single person here knows every other person in this crowd. I know, some of these people I just met today. The only thing that connects all of us is you. And it's amazing to think that such a fundamentally and private and personal act, like meeting someone, developing a relationship, and deciding to solemnize it, are the only acts powerful enough to bring this specific group together. Your choices in this relationship affect far more people than just you. And I hope the memory of this day and this view will do that. But of course, I'd be remiss not to mention that someone here has a greater stake in your relationship than any of us other witnesses. God instituted marriage at creation, and as such, it's a commitment apart from other commitments. Up till now, you've been two entities growing closer together, but today that ends. Genesis 2:24 says, "A man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." This union of flesh requires significant concessions. You can no longer dissolve your relationship by normal means. Jesus said in Matthew 19:6 and 9, "What therefore God has joined together, let no man separate. Whoever divorces his wife except for immorality and marries another woman commits adultery." Those celebrities Dad criticized who backed out of their marriage because they didn't feel the way they once did about each other were wrong. Your feelings today won't last a lifetime, but your relationship should. And that'll take work. It'll require subordinating your own desires to one another. Rosemary, Ephesians 5:24 says, "The church is subject to Christ, so also wives ought to be to their husbands in everything." There's no exceptions for when he doesn't understand or when he's being impatient. Likewise, Dan, the very next verse, Ephesians 5:25 says, "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her." You need to be willing to give her your all, even when her feelings seem silly or inconsequential. The actions in these verses, submission and love, I would say they're equally selfless, manifested in the same way, by putting the other's interests over your own. In 1 Corinthians 7:4, the Apostle Paul goes so far as to say the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. When you get married, you give up your sovereignty over your own person. And that's not a popular proposition in our culture, but that's how it's designed to be, because marriage isn't about you. Of course, it's not all about giving things up. It's the first step and only means of accessing certain blessings in the fullness of God's design: companionship, intimacy, and parenthood. We went skydiving a few weeks ago, so I'll close with an aviation analogy. Up until now, you guys have been flying a taxi plane. Getting out would have been harder as you went along, but you still could have done it with minimal damage. Today, you're taking off, and no one has a parachute. Sometimes it'll be easy, and sometimes it'll be hard. It may require sacrifice and stress and effort such as you've never known before. But consider the vast and incomparable array of experiences you've now unlocked that would have been inaccessible before. I pray that God will bless and protect your journey, and I wish you a happy one.
Marriage is more than the bond of two persons. It is the joining of two hearts. The union of husband and wife survives and thrives on the love you give each other. Therefore, as you pledge your vows to each other, know that marriage is not to be entered into unadvisedly or lightly, but reverently, deliberately, and in accordance with the purposes for which it was instituted by God. I invite Dan and Rosemary to share their personal vows to each other.
Darling, from the beginning, your presence in my life has always brought me the greatest joy. And for that, I promise to always giggle at the silly things in life, just to see that smile and the twinkle in your eyes. You know me better than anyone else in the world, and through my faults, you still find reasons to love me. I vow to be worthy of your love. I vow to listen to you until you are heard, despite my stubborn and short-tempered nature. I vow to help us grow together in this partnership and as individuals. I vow to wake up in the morning and decide to love you, not because it's easy, but because it's hard and you are worth every effort. I'm still amazed that I'm the one who gets to marry you today, and I vow to never take that for granted as we navigate through the adventures of life hand in hand. I see these vows as blessings. I get to laugh and cry with you, care and share with you, live with you, and love you for the rest of my life.
I can't go from memory like her. Too nervous. Rosemary Evans, spending these last few years with you, I've experienced full joy, complete peace, and become a better man because of you. Joy because of your Rosemariness. Your wide spectrum of laughs, little noises, cute smiles, and silly mannerisms absolutely delight me. I vow to always cherish that Rosemariness and never take for granted a smile or a moment of laughter with you. Complete peace because you quickly became all I need in this life. When I hold you, the world shrinks to the two of us. I vow that home will always be wherever I'm with you. In regard to being a better person, I vow to continually push myself to be more Christ-like, a better husband, and eventually a better father. In addition to these, I vow to always seek out new adventures with you, and to always be up for ice cream on said adventures. I vow to support your dreams and aspirations. I vow to be perfectly loyal and trust you completely as your partner in all things. All of me, everything I am, and everything I have is yours forever.
Dan, do you take Rosemary to be your lawfully wedded wife?
I do.
Do you promise to always remember that spark when you first met and how those feelings turned into love?
Yep.
Will you continue in growing your dynamic relationship by listening to her and listening from her to provide a foundation of support?
I do.
In doing so, will you cherish your differences, be supportive of her strengths, and tender towards her weaknesses?
I do.
Lastly, do you promise to choose to love her and have faith in her love for you through all the years of your life? Rosemary, do you take Dan to be your lawfully wedded husband?
I do.
Do you promise to always remember that spark when you first met and how those feelings turned into love?
I do.
Will you continue in growing your dynamic relationship by listening to him and learning from him to provide a foundation of support?
I do.
In doing so, will you cherish your differences by being supportive of his strengths and tender towards his weaknesses?
I do.
Lastly, do you promise to choose to love him and have faith in his love for you through all the years of your life?
I do.
And will you take this ring and place it on Rosemary's finger and repeat after me? With this ring, I give you my heart.
With this ring, I give you my heart.
I promise from this day forward, you shall not walk alone.
I promise from this day forward, you shall not walk alone.
As I pledge to you my love, my loyalty, and my love.
As I pledge to you my life,